Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Nazi Spy Ring in America, Hitler's Agents, the FBI, and the Case That Stirred the Nation, by Rhodri Jeffries Jones, narrated by David Colacci. Preface. Reacting to the carnage of World War I and to the rise of Adolf Hitler, the U.S. Congress passed Neutrality Acts in the years 1935 through 37. The nation vowed never again to take sides in a European war. Yet in the year immediately following the final and most draconian of those acts, opinion changed on the subject of neutrality. One reason for the transformation was the exposure in 1938 of a Nazi spy ring operating in the United States. Leon Turo, a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, was instrumental in securing that exposure and launched a campaign to warn the American people about the Nazi menace. The case resulted in increased powers and funds for the FBI. Yet the Bureau's director, J. Edgar Hoover, turned against the ace detective who had once been his favorite. Hoover undertook a decades-long campaign to blacklist Turo and to ensure that he would never become a household name. That is one reason why the story unraveled in this book is unfamiliar and has not been heeded by historians writing about U.S. foreign relations. The ensuing story attempts to restore the balance and to tell the full story of German espionage directed against the United States. It identifies the master spy with a dueling scar who directed operations against U.S. targets. They unravel some of the case's mysteries. Who was behind the Mata Hari plot to seduce young Army officers in Washington, D.C.? Was anybody innocent in the McAlpin Hotel murder plot? Why did our chief protagonist, Leon Turo, deny he was Jewish? The story tells of fast cars, louche liaisons, and a critical tip-off by the British Security Service, MI5. At the same time, it carries a serious message about spies from a totalitarian country who tried to subvert democracy in the United States and, in the end, inflamed public opinion to the detriment of the fascist cause. In January 2013, under the terms of the Freedom of Information Act, I applied to access FBI documents relating to the Nazi espionage case. It was a big task. The name of one spy whose story I shall tell, Jesse Jordan, appeared on no fewer than 14,500 pages. John Russo of the FBI Information Management Division labored over a 2-year period to supply me, in a manageable format, with digital copies of the documents I needed. Richard Bareford generously helped me obtain and wade through the FBI's file on Leon Turo. Still more archival help came from Rod Bailey and Andrew Jeffrey, who shared with me their expertise on MI5 files. 1. Lonkovsky's Legacy. The time was mid-evening, September 27, 1935. The place, Pier 86 on the Hudson River in New York City. The guard wearing U.S. Customs Service badge number 572 was Morris Josephs. His gaze fell upon a familiar scene. Passengers, relatives, and friends milled around in an excited throng, anticipating the departure of the North German Lloyd steamship Europa. Just after 8:30 p.m., Josephs, a keen musician, spied a smooth-faced man in a dark hat carrying on board what appeared to be a violin case. Citizens of that mobster-ridden era knew how Thompson submachine guns fit snugly into such receptacles, and the customs guard stayed alert. After a short while, the smooth-faced man left the ship and walked back down the pier, with the object still tucked under his arm. At 8:50 p.m., Josephs arrested him. Upon closer inspection, the parcel, which was not even a violin case, contained neither a gun nor a Stradivarius. It did, however, contain copies of military plans. The man in the dark hat was Wilhelm Willy Lonkowski, codename Sex. When the American press belatedly found out about him, one journalist declared that he was the cream among spies. Lonkowski certainly had one useful attribute, a talent for obscurity. After months of intensive, if belated, investigation, an FBI special agent finally lamented, "Little is known concerning the personal history of Lonkowski." No FBI agent ever knowingly encountered Agent Sex. Yet over the years a partial picture emerged of this most secretive of secret agents. Lonkowski was slender and tall, with brown hair and blue eyes. He had a long nose and floppy ears. He suffered from stomach ulcers, exacerbated by the anxieties of long years of espionage. His heavy drinking did not help his medical condition, though it was an operational advantage that he was a cold soak. That is, he could remain sober while plying the keepers of secrets with drinks that loosened their tongues. Like several spies in our story, Lonkowski came from contested territory. He was born in 1896 in Vorlini, in German, Vorleinen, a village Prussia claimed following the 18th century partition of Poland that then passed to the unified state of Germany in 1871. In World War I, he served as an airman in the Imperial German Army and suffered grievous injuries when a French pilot shot him down. Just before the end of hostilities, the recovering aviator married Auguste Gunny Kruger, the daughter of a barber from Obernich, also in East Prussia. After the war, Lonkowski tried to carve out a career as an aircraft designer. He never explained why he became a spy. The embittered patriotism of a wounded and defeated soldier no doubt played its part. Patriotism had a special twist for a man who came from the German-Polish borderland with its threatened identities. Adolf Hitler would promise a greater Germany under Teutonic control, an aspiration that appealed to ethnic partisans. Like other German spies, Lonkowski may have felt aggrieved with the United States for its role in helping to defeat his country and in the subsequent peace settlement that punished Germany on the grounds of war guilt. Lonkowski's agency, the Abwehr, inherited a tradition. Prussia had a history of espionage. Frederick the Great once dismissed a military foe with the words, "Marshal de Soubise is always followed by 100 cooks, whereas I am always preceded by 100 spies." The Versailles peace settlement threatened to end that tradition. According to its provisions, German military activity was supposed to be confined to specified units and excluded spying. But old ways returned. In 1921, Friedrich Gemp, who had been the deputy to the wartime intelligence chief Walter Nicolai, took charge of a group of 10 officers and together with support personnel formed the Abwehr, which literally means defense, but soon expanded its mission. By 1935, staff numbers had reached 150. 3 years later, 1,000. The Abwehr sought technical data to enable Germany to rebuild its military. In September 1926, Gemp singled out Lonkowski for a mission to the technologically advanced United States. While Germany was hitherto renowned for the quality of its technical education, such education was stagnating due to a lack of money and to resistance from the nation's traditional elite. By comparison, the United States, by the mid-1920s, had demonstrated it had the prowess and the means to outstrip its European rivals. On March 27, 1927, the secret agent had arrived in Hoboken, New Jersey, carrying a passport in the name of Wilhelm Schneider. This was one of a string of aliases that included William Sexton, the mundane origin, through abbreviation, of his later operational code name Sex. Lonkovsky and his wife were gifted individuals. Gunny knew about hats, and once they had both settled in Long Island in 1929, she managed a millinery shop and then a dress emporium in Queens Village. Willie could repair and tune practically any musical instrument. He worked at this trade for the Temple of Music store in Hempstead, Long Island. More significantly for his mission as a spy, he worked between 1929 and 1931 as a mechanic for the Ireland Aircraft Corporation at nearby Roosevelt Field, and then for Fairchild Aviation Corporation in Farmingdale, New York. According to Willie's cover story, the childless Lonkovskys accumulated enough capital working in the United States to enable Willie to return to Germany in February 1934, where he engaged in wire manufacturing. His cover story held that he then sold the business and returned to the States on January 18, 1935, with considerable funds. That would have been a remarkable feat, given the brevity of his stay in Germany. The truth is, the money came from the German Foreign Intelligence Service. The time had come to reinvigorate Abwehr spying operations in the United States. Lonkovsky built a formidable spy network. He was able to recruit German Americans working in the defense industry. Managers in that industry had been glad to hire well-trained workers, and, perhaps reassured by the supposed demilitarization of Germany, did so with scant regard to security checks. While working at the Ireland Aircraft Corporation, Lonkovsky also secured work there for the future secret agent Otto Hermann Voss. A native of Hamburg who had trained as a machinist and had served with the Imperial German Army's Company of Engineers in World War I, Voss was an airplane mechanic and keen yachtsman who worked for a succession of U.S. defense industry businesses after his arrival in the country in October 1928. He and his wife, Anna, whom he married in 1934, socialized with their neighbors, the Lonkovskys. On one such occasion, Willie introduced Voss to Karl Eitel, a German agent who worked as a steward on the steamship SS Bremen. Built for the North German Lloyd Line and launched in 1929, the Bremen achieved a cruising speed of 27 knots, and until 1932 held the Blue Riband, which was awarded for the fastest transatlantic crossing. It was the pride of a resurgent German maritime industry. However, the Bremen and its sibling ship, the SS Europa, served as vehicles for propaganda, censorship, and espionage. When the Nazis gained power, they installed stormtroopers, or political bosses, to enforce totalitarian discipline on these and other German ships. They banned magazines such as Harper's that expressed free American opinions, and the atmosphere became so poisoned that passengers began to shun the shipping line. In July 1935, just 2 months prior to Lonkovsky's arrest, the Bremen took center stage in the international fight against fascism. Communist-led members of the International Seamen's Union in New York wanted to protest the imprisonment of Lawrence Simpson, an American sailor whom the German authorities had arrested for distributing anti-Nazi literature in Hamburg. The protesters looked for a target and found one close at hand. Activist Bill Bailey described the great German ship that dominated the waterfront. Her bow jutted up, looming over the street. Large, powerful floodlights in various parts of the ship directed their beams at one spot, the jackstaff that held the Nazi swastika. Demonstrators boarded the ship, and Bailey was one of those who tore down the swastika and cast it into the cold, black water of the Hudson River. The New York Seamen's protest sparked imitation anti-swastika demonstrations across the world. What had started as a communist-inspired movement soon won wider sympathy. When the case against the flag vandals went to court in September, Louis B. Brodsky, a Jewish New York magistrate, dismissed the charges and condemned the swastika as a piratical emblem. Hitler reacted. At the annual Nuremberg Nazi Party rally that month, he declared that the swastika would replace the imperial tricolor as Germany's official national standard. Ships such as the Bremen supported not just the Nazi apparatus, but also the Abwehr's operations. The commanding officers of German passenger ships knowingly facilitated the transport of spy couriers with their letters and bulky documents. The British Royal Navy had intercepted Berlin's messages and broken its codes in World War I, and transatlantic cables remained an unreliable means of sending secret data. Sea transport in Nazi Party-disciplined ocean liners was slower, but more secure. Karl Eitel agreed to serve as a courier for Lonkowski, for example, by delivering a letter asking Berlin for more money. By way of reverse traffic, Eitel relayed to Voss the German authorities' desire for specified U.S. military technical secrets. In the course of 6 subsequent meetings, Voss supplied Eitel with design details and photographs of Army training planes under construction at the Seversky Aircraft Company, covering the wings, fuselage, engines, and landing gear. Voss had himself re-engineered the landing gear to make it stronger. Germany paid Lonkowski generously. He received $500 a month, with bonuses for particularly useful intelligence. With his expenses paid, Willie was able to reward his informants handsomely. He claimed to have dispensed to a single group of spies as much as $30,000 in 1 year. Perhaps he exaggerated, but the material benefits of the advanced technology that his agents purloined from military-associated industries were of great value to his employers. Neither the U.S. government nor the nation's industries were prepared for such an espionage onslaught, and Lonkowski had a sharp eye for opportunities. From Johannes Karl Steuer, an inspector at the Sperry Gyroscope Company in Brooklyn, he solicited information on bomb sites. Johannes Kögel, a foreman at the Kohl-Morgan Optical Corporation in Brooklyn, may well have supplied him with data on periscopes. Another of Lonkowski's recruits at the Ireland Aircraft Corporation was Werner Georg Gudenberg. A native of Hamburg and a trained coppersmith, Gudenberg first stepped ashore in the United States on October 22, 1928, having arrived in New York on the SS Deutschland. By the end of the year, he was foreman of the fuselage and fitting department at Ireland Aircraft. Under Lonkowski's tutelage, he would obtain secrets from a contact in the Boston Navy Yard and scheme to lure German-born technicians to return to the fatherland, where they would be induced to divulge the secrets of U.S. military technology. In still another venture, Lonkowski set up an agent in Montreal, instructing him to forward rolls of film to Germany and later to spy on the Canadian aviation industry. Lonkowski was the Abwehr's main man in America, yet he was not in overall control of German espionage operations in the United States. The Abwehr abided by what was a valued principle of good security: compartmentalization. The left hand was not allowed to know about the right hand, lest the right hand had fallen under the control of a rival agency, making it liable to betray the secrets of both hands. For such security reasons, Willie did not control Abwehr operations in California. For the same reason, he may not have known about the Abwehr's effort to get hold of a code-deciphering machine developed for the U.S. Navy Department by the gifted American codebreaker Agnes Driscoll, née Meyer. Together with Poland and Germany, the United States was in the early stages of developing computer-driven encryption and decryption. Agnes Driscoll, a later FBI report noted dryly that she was of German ancestry, obtained a secret appropriation of $6,250 from the U.S. government in recompense for her contribution. But that was less than she had claimed. Furthermore, she suffered an automobile accident at this time that temporarily incapacitated her, and she may have felt aggrieved when the Navy Department stopped her salary during the period of her recuperation. According to FBI sources, the woman who is today remembered as a pioneer of U.S. cryptography sold the device for $7,000 to the Abwehr, prompting jubilation in Berlin. The Driscoll mission was never directly traced to the Lonkovsky network. The same was only partially true of another high-technology venture. Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr between 1935 and 1944, commissioned this operation. He entrusted its execution to Nikolaus Nicky Adolf Fritz Ritter. A native of Reit in the Rhineland and the son of a university president, Ritter had been twice wounded while fighting as an infantry officer in World War I. In the course of that conflict, he spent some time in the United States on the staff of Franz von Papen, who, as a military attaché in Washington in 1914-16, ran sabotage operations against British and Canadian installations. Von Papen later became the Chancellor of Germany and facilitated the rise of Hitler. In 1924, Ritter arrived in the United States on an immigration visa. Tall, blond, and blue-eyed, he stirred feelings in an Alabama girl named Mary Aurora Lady May Evans. 2 years after his arrival, they married. They had a boy and a girl and seemed a happy family. But following the stock market crash and in the Great Depression era, Ritter's business ventures enjoyed indifferent success. An official at the German embassy suggested that he resume his military duties. Ritter returned to Germany and on September 1, 1936, became an agent of the Abwehr, attached to its Hamburg office. Under the tutelage of Hilmar Gustav Johannes Dirks, an experienced intelligence officer, he won the confidence of his superiors and would receive the Iron Cross for his intelligence work against the United Kingdom. If Ritter conformed to one facet of the typical Abwehr profile in having served in World War I, he subscribed to another by engaging in extramarital activities. Soon after he joined the Abwehr, the man described by an associate as a very brutal, ambitious individual developed an interest in his secretary. Aurora frowned on his Secret Service work, and his marital infidelity was the last straw. In 1938 she divorced Nikolaus, and the following year he remarried. Nikolaus had custody of the children each summer, and he banned his wife from returning to the United States. Aurora was bitter about her former husband's behavior. When she obtained a job at the U.S. consulate in Hamburg, it would be only a matter of time before she told American officials what she knew. In July 1937, Canaris had ordered Ritter to spy on Aurora's native land. According to Ritter's later account of the mission, he was not keen on the assignment. He claimed it was because he was fond of the United States, even if he had reservations about what he termed the Americans' tendency to treat women like royalty. Evidently, he had not treated Aurora that way. But an order was an order, and he obeyed it. At first, things did not go well. He was violently seasick on the Atlantic voyage, and when a German-American journalist recognized him as he passed through immigration, it might have blown the whole operation. Perhaps he had not quite gotten over his queasiness, as he reacted by changing his name to Mr. Landing. Initially, Ritter's aim was to establish contact with Frederick Fritz Joubert Duquesne, someone Canaris identified as having been involved in Secret Service work in World War I. Duquesne had been the intelligence officer for the Order of 76, a whites-only, anti-New Deal, pro-Nazi organization founded in March 1934. Aurora recalled that after meeting Duquesne, her husband broadened his activities and visited all the important airplane factories in the United States. She said that his sole reason for going to the United States was to visit the agents planted in such factories. In what Ritter later described as a cold letter of instruction, Canaris gave him a more specific mission. He was to secure the details of the Norden bomb site. Carl Norden was a Dutch immigrant who had worked for the Sperry Gyroscope Company and then launched his own Norden Company. Sperry and Norden had competed to produce an improved bomb site. Norden won the race to produce a marketable device equipped with a gyroscopic stabilization mechanism that promised to deliver aerial bombs to their targets with unprecedented accuracy. Ritter operated through the German-American network. His prior list of contacts included not only Duquesne, but also Gutenberg, who by this time had inherited Lonkovsky's responsibilities. Exploiting such contacts, Ritter met a man who was in a position to help him. Hermann W. Lang had long-standing fascist sympathies, and in 1923 had participated in the Munich Putsch, an early Hitler-led attempt to overthrow the democratically elected government of Germany. He had immigrated to the United States in 1927. Acquiring U.S. citizenship 2 years later, he worked at the Manhattan factory that produced the sought-after bomb site. Ritter arranged to meet Lang, whom he described as tall, blond, and trustworthy. Ritter habitually praised men with Aryan characteristics. Lang was so dedicated to the Nazi cause that he refused payment for his services. After a trial run, the engineer gave Ritter a partial blueprint for the Norden bomb site. The rather large blueprint would not fit into a normal briefcase or small package, so Ritter arranged for it to be rolled up inside a customized umbrella that he had brought with him to the States. On November 30th, 1937, a spy courier with a fake limp boarded the SS Reliance of the Hamburg American line, his hobble giving him the appearance of someone who needed to lean on the loaded umbrella for support. It contained the first of several Norden consignments. By 1941, the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, had its own gyroscopic device. Ernst Heinkel, the German airplane designer, said that the Norden acquisition had been pivotal in the development of its German equivalent. German bomb site engineers, however, denied it. Whether the German version was a copy of the American prototype or not, knowledge of the U.S. capability in the 1930s was of interest to Berlin, whose armed forces might one day have to face more accurate bombing. The Norden theft impressed Germany's spy masters and helped Ritter further his career. The Ritter-Lang story shows how Willy Lonkovsky's network was not all-embracing. Nevertheless, it was the principal German intelligence operation in the United States. Berlin valued Lonkovsky's services and had plans to reward him with a sinecure in its Air Force ministry. However, he did not stay in the country long enough to witness the full fruits of his clandestine labors. For this, he blamed a woman. It had all begun with a sortie by his wife. Gunny drank heavily. One day in March 1935, she ventured out into the Hempstead community to buy wine and gin. She fell into conversation with Senta Devanger, the proprietor of Clinton Wine Shop. In the course of subsequent purchasing trips and chats, she told Senta the false news that Gunny's husband, William Lonkovsky, was terminally ill. Knowing that Senta had a large house and lived alone, Gunny suggested it would be mutually advantageous if she and Willie moved in with her. Senta agreed, charging a rental of $20 a month. The benefits included the use of an additional space that served as a photographer's darkroom. The Lonkovskys installed a telephone in Senta de Vanger's name and operated a 1929 Nash sedan.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?